Welcome to Iris Fast Approach by Streamworks Audio. I'm your host and instructor, Walt Honeycutt. Over the next hour, the Streamworks team and I will take you through iZotope's latest instrument, Iris. Just a couple of basics before we jump in. To get Iris under your hands as quickly as possible, it's a good idea to watch the chapters sequentially. And I'm also going to assume that you already have Iris downloaded and authorized, but if not, check out the support section of the iZotope webpage for help. With that in mind, we've got a lot to cover. Let's get going. When you first launch Iris, this is the user interface you'll see. Pretty basic. In fact, it's so stripped down that you might think you haven't loaded the program properly, but this view just has everything tucked away. These 4 tabs in the frame will open up everything else, but we'll get into that in just a second. The very first thing that you need to do is connect an audio driver. The easiest way to do that is open the Edit menu and select Audio Hardware Setup. You can open the Driver menu and the Device menu and make your connections. Now, if you're running Iris as a plugin, you'll configure all this routing through the host program. Next is the menu for buffer size. This lets you choose how much of your computer's memory you're going to allow Iris to have. These units are actually samples, and the default buffer size is 1,024 samples. The higher you set this value, the easier it is for Iris to work, but set it too high and you'll begin to notice a delay between when you press the key and when you hear the sound. On the other hand, if you dial this down too low and there's not enough memory to go around, you'll start to get pops, clicks, and dropouts. So somewhere between 512 and 1024 should work pretty well, but it depends how fast your computer is, how many other things you have running, and so forth. So you may have to tweak the buffer size for your system. This test tone function allows you to generate a sine wave right from the audio control panel. Now, this is mostly so that you can test your audio connections, but you could also use it for tuning if you selected the A440 or middle C options. Now, I want to show you our competition. Iris comes with a built-in tour guide. Open the Help menu and select the option to Tour Iris, and iZotope will show you the tools you can use to create or customize your own Iris sounds. But I'm going to let you play with that on your own. Iris is made up of this central display and 4 main panels. The global panel for settings that affect the entire instrument, the synth panel for controlling and editing various voices, the tools panel, which holds all of your editing and viewing tools, and the keyboard panel, which is where all of your performance controllers are kept. Let's load up a preset so that I can show you a few more basic features. Click on the name to open the preset browser. Now, this is the simple browser view. We'll get into what this full browser button does in Chapter 3. Click on the category keys and then click on the patch called 2012, which is a great all-round synth. Now let's just turn on a few more things. If you click on the wrench icon, the options menu opens, and you can see options for general, display, audio, and library. In the display section, make sure that you have Show Tooltips selected. When tooltips are active, you can hover your mouse over a control for just a moment and a little description balloon pops up to tell you what it is. Let's also enable the options for Show Time Ruler and Show Frequency Ruler. These will help us find our way around the spectrogram. Finally, let's set the time ruler to seconds instead of samples because seconds are a more familiar unit of measurement for most of us. And then we can close the options window. Now you can see the frequency and time rulers sort of framing the spectrogram. The spectrogram shows you a visual picture of the sound's frequency content. We'll get into what all these lines and circles mean in the next chapter. At the very bottom is a slider which allows you to crossfade the display between spectrogram view and waveform view. The waveform view makes it easier to see the volume of your sound over time. And at the very top is a waveform overview window, and you can probably guess already that only the bright yellow part of this waveform is being used. Throughout Iris, you'll see zoom controls. This set is used to adjust the zoom level of the time axis on the spectrogram. Now you can use the plus or minus buttons to step up and down incrementally, or you can click and drag the handle in the middle. You'll also find these undocking buttons in various places. They kind of look like an eject button. If I click this one, the toolbar is undocked from Iris and becomes its own floating window. Now, this is handy if you want to declutter the spectrogram or maybe make more efficient use of multiple monitors. To redock it, all you have to do is close the floating window. We'll see other examples of undocking as we get deeper into Iris. You'll also find power switches to enable many functions. Here's one for the distortion effect. You have these reveal triangles that open submenus like this one for keyboard mapping. And finally, many of the controls also have what's known as a context or right-click menu associated with them. One example is the global pan control. If I right-click here, it gives me the option to assign this control to the mod wheel. And now the mod wheel controls global panning. Then I can right-click again, fine-tune the minimum and maximum values. Or I can remove the assignment. Okay, with these fundamentals in mind, let's move on to the next chapter and look at the theory and sound architecture of Iris.